Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have part two, the full review for the Monta Triumph. We actually ended 2017 with my initial thoughts and unboxing of this particular watch, and I figured why not start 2018 strong with really a standout, for me at least, as far as quality goes, and quality in design and quality in execution, that is on this channel, and really from what I've seen out there on the market today. So a little bit about the brand. Monta was founded back in 2015. They're a Swiss-made brand, owned in the United States and operated, still there today. They're a micro brand startup with their eye on that entry-level luxury market. And when I say luxury, I'm not using that term very loosely. This is definitely a luxury timepiece. In the build quality, the experience, the packaging, kind of the whole 9 yards. I think they really provide you with a luxury experience, and it's something that I've just been really impressed with the brand. So big shout out to Monta. Outstanding work you've been doing thus far. Now, a little bit about this type of watch. I guess you could categorize it as an everyday watch. Now, when you're looking for a watch you can wear every day, of course you're going to be looking for a versatile blend of sporty and dressy attributes. Now, this particular watch, of course, is designed and inspired by, field watches from the past, explorer type watches, and I think it really fits that niche well without taking any elements from any particular reference from the past. So although it feels like it fits within the genre really well, what I think is really nice is that it's not an homage watch. It's not, it pays homage more so to the entire genre versus a particular reference from the past, which is something that's very popular today, even from within brands. We have brands that are brand revivals, and also reissues are really huge right now. So I think it's really cool that a brand can kind of come out of nowhere and bring something out there that just has such a cohesive fit into the market. And I just think that they really knew what they were looking to execute, and they did really in spades. So this particular Triumph unit is the silver model. Now the pricing is going to be direct from Monta, so ship direct. You're looking at $1,550 on Bracelet, as you see here, or you can get them for $1,385 on leather or $1,375 on rubber. They all do include a premium NATO strap, which is a nice touch. Now, let's go ahead and take a closer look. Okay, now having this piece in hand, you really get a sense for the real fine finishing and the build quality here. Now, this isn't something that can really get picked up in a lot of pictures or even in video, but I'm really hoping that here you're going to be able to kind of see it at different angles, and we can hopefully key in on some of these attributes that really give this watch what we would call legs. I mean, this thing really sings. So, of course, the specs did roll across the screen there in the beginning of the video. But just to recap now, I think the diameter here is really perfect, right at 38.5 millimeters. There was a time when I would look at that size and go, oh man, I wish it was 40. That's when I was really new to collecting, and I thought it was all a numbers game. There's so many more things that go into how a watch will wear apart from just the raw numbers and the specs. Now, one of the nice things about this particular watch is, of course, it has a bezel, but it doesn't have like a dive bezel or a tachymeter bezel or anything like that. So what that does is it enables you to have more dial, and you can have a watch that's going to wear larger without actually being larger. So it's going to fit nicely on the wrist, but the proportions are just going to be right about perfect. Now on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, I think this fits just beautifully. I mean, you guys will see once we get the wrist shots on there. I think it actually looks nice up close on the wrist, as well as it's very proportional, when you're looking at the watch, with the whole person in mind, right? A lot of reviewers, you just kind of see it up close as somebody's wrist. The watch looks huge. You look on Instagram, pretty much every watch is going to look ginormous when it's zoomed up, up in the face of a camera. And then you have, just a silhouette of a wrist there behind it. So scale is something that plays really huge into how a watch wears. Now, one of the nice things about this watch is it is very thin. That's something else that will make a watch feel a bit larger, and I know that doesn't really make sense. You're hearing, oh, well, if it's thin, you should wear smaller. Well, if it's thin, it's going to make the watch seem flatter in profile, which is going to make the dimension, the width that's on it, that much more pronounced. Now, if this was thicker, it could actually make this feel smaller, in that now the proportions would be a bit different, right? So it's the numbers working together and playing together. So if you have a larger wrist, I don't want you to shy away from this particular watch. And of course, if you have a smaller wrist, you're probably not worried about the 38.5 millimeter size. I just feel like this is such a sweet spot. Really, that 39 millimeter, 38.5 millimeter, even 38 millimeter. It's just a sweet spot for watches of this type. Of course, ones where there's going to be more dial. And then another thing that plays into proportions is, where the indices and the layout, the length of the hands. So there's just a lot that plays into that, and without breaking it down into some kind of crazy, formula, I think that Monta really hits it with this piece. I mean, at right under 11 millimeters thick, it's just really, really nice as far as the way it looks and feels on the wrist. Now, of course, you're going to get sapphire, 7 layers of AR coating. You get this beautiful screw down crown. The bezel has that beautiful radial brushing on it, and that's something that really makes it stand out. It's not something you see every day, and it's much easier, of course, to just throw a polished bezel on a watch like this. So just seeing that extra design element, how it ties into just the beauty of that sunray dial pattern. And as you can see, that this watch is actually pretty hard to photograph at times, just because of the dial itself. As you can see there, it really plays with the light. It goes from a very dark, anthracite to even a very bright, full-on silver there. So it's definitely a color that makes it more versatile than you would think. Oh, well, it's just a gray dial watch. But because of the finish on it, you're getting so many different hues and tones. And the beautiful thing is the color play of the red text for Triumph is just wonderful, because no matter how things are playing with on the dial, that pop of color just makes all the difference, and I think it just adds a wonderful touch of style. Now, as far as the movement goes, it's a really interesting choice, and I think it's a choice that I wish more brands out there would make. This is the Solidifies SW300. Which is a wonderful movement. It's it's a higher grade than the SW200, which is essentially a 2824 clone. This is more akin to the 2892 that you'll find in much more high-end watches. And honestly, the 2892 is probably a little bit easier to source at this point, and probably even more affordable than the Solida, just because if these were more affordable, I think plenty more brands would be using them, because it's just an outstanding movement. As you can see here, really finely finished, well executed. I mean, not crazy over decorated or anything like that, but what you have there is just everything looks gorgeous on it. It's just a higher grade and higher caliber to be working with, and it also enables that very thin height there, which definitely is a huge plus. So you do have that beautiful 4 Hz sweep, which is going to be 8 ticks per second. 38-hour power reserve, pretty standard. And then the nice thing is that this is chronometer tuned. Now, this is not COSC certified, but they actually do adjust these in-house, and essentially they tune them to within chronometer specs, which is plus 6 seconds or minus 4 seconds a day. I have this one running at about maybe +1, +2 is from what I've seen. I have a lot of watches, so of course these, I don't wear watches regularly enough to keep too well track of it, but from what I've seen, this has been one of my more accurate timepieces, and the fact that it's not COSC is actually even more impressive because it is keeping that time. And the nice thing is, since it is adjusted, it's not just luck of the draw, that it's keeping good time. It's actually been adjusted in different positions, which is really great. That's something that I think is a huge misconception for when people are shopping for watches. They look in the forums, somebody says, oh, well, my Seiko is within 1 or 2 seconds a day, why pay for this or that? Well, guess what? When you're getting it by the luck of the draw and it hasn't actually, been adjusted any positions, now the positional variance is going to be play a huge role. So you might have really bang on timing when your watch is, laying flat in a watch box face up. But the minute you wear it and you start, or maybe, hey, it's keeping great time when it's on your wrist because you're keeping it moving and you're keeping it varying within positions enough to where it's balancing out. But if you leave it on your nightstand for a night face up or crown up, it's going to completely throw off your timing, and then all of a sudden you're +30, right? So that's something I think that's really important to keep in mind when you do consider a watch, is not just the variance that you're gonna likely get, right, which is gonna be a wide range from the movement manufacturer standpoint, but actually from if they have any type of in-house adjusting, I think it's better than nothing, and it's definitely much cheaper for them than getting things chronometer certified, which is going to cost more money. So and then of course you're going to be paying for that. So really, I think that's a really great feature of here, and it's not like we need any more text. And of course, if this was a chronometer, you'd have to throw the word chronometer on it, otherwise, what's the point, right? So that's just my 2 cents there. Now, the dial, again, another really unique feature is you have a nice mixture of applied and printed on indices there, as you can see. And, some people, they just want to key in and oh, well, why isn't it this? Why don't we change that? If we could move these numerals around, delete the numerals. I feel like a lot of people have a lot of ideas, and at the end of the day, what the designers at Monta were able to do is come out with a balanced piece. If you try to move any piece of this dial around, I still haven't seen a render that looks better than the way it looks right now. And I think it's, right now, it is a real favorite in the watch community, and of course here on this channel, definitely a channel favorite and a personal favorite of mine in my collection. But I do foresee this watch potentially becoming a future classic, because it just has a gorgeous look to it that's all its own, and I could definitely see people wanting to capitalize on a very similar aesthetic, just because this one is just so well balanced again, and it doesn't look like an Explorer, it doesn't look like an Aquaterra, but it does the same job, and it fits the same the same role. So the nice thing is it has the same skill set, in spec and in execution, although it doesn't look like a knockoff, rip-off, or a filler watch. This isn't something you're going to want to get, oh, well, you really want another watch, but maybe I'll get this one in the meantime. This is something that you're going to have your own personal reasons to lust after, just for its own merits, right? So it's just a really fine piece, and I just enjoy it so much. And then the date at 6 o'clock, another, that's something that I think the market is huge on right now. If the date isn't at 6 o'clock, people pretty much either want no date at all, or, they'll settle for a date at 3. But 6 seems to be, right now, the current, you know, everybody loves that just because it is it helps make the dial more symmetrical, which I think is of course something, you know, aesthetics, everybody thinks about those when purchasing a watch. So the loom is BGW9. We'll make sure to get a nice loom shot in there. Water resistance is 150 meters or 500 feet, which is completely capable for the type of watch that this is, and definitely more than you're ever going to need. So really helps fit in to that everyday watch category. When I think of an everyday watch, I think it has to have at least 100 meters water resistance. So 150 is great. I mean, there used to be dive watches that were 150 meters water resistance. So what you're going to get here is just something you can wear anywhere essentially and feel good about it, and you know, not worry so much about it being damaged by water or moisture, which is really nice. And to me, it is a must when considering a watch to wear every day. So I mean, which is one of the reasons why dive watches are so popular. So it's nice to see that in something that's a little bit more sedate, more subdued, you know, and just kind of understated, which I think, you know, they pull off again in spades for this piece. The lug width, again, perfect, 20 millimeter lug width. So all those NATOs, all those different straps are going to go well with this. And then of course, this brand started out making straps, right? You know, kind of at their parent company, Everest Straps. They started making straps, you know, for Rolex watches, and now, of course, those similar quality straps are available for this watch. So that's another plus about this. You can get these amazing fitted rubber end straps, fitted leather straps. So really fantastic options as far as that goes. But really for me, you know, this piece, one of the main reasons I think this is so special is this bracelet. It is just one of the best in the business, and I'm going to preface that in no way to anything else that's out there. This isn't one of the best affordable bracelets. This isn't one of the best micro brand bracelets, indie bracelets. This is just straight up one of the best bracelets that are out there. There's really not much else you can ask for. From the finishing, the fit and the finish, that's something that a lot of people will kind of pair exclusively, fit and finish. Those are two different things. There are a lot of watches now that you can find that have a really nice finish to them. But getting the good fit, the fitness, the way everything fits together, now that is something that you have to have precision in your execution. Things can be nicely finished. For example, Seikos. There's some beautiful Presage Seikos. I have some. I've reviewed some on the channel. There's more to review on the channel that have outstanding finishing, but the fit is not the same. That's the difference between Presage Seiko and a Grand Seiko. It's not necessarily going to be the finish, it's going to be the fit. And that's, again, something that Monta has executed to a T. Here it has the finish. Look at those micro bevels there on each link. And then look at the fit. There's no gaps in there. There's only enough gap to suit movement. And the way this is going to wrap around your wrist is just beautiful. And it's just infinitely comfortable. And then, of course, one of the great features that is kind of always highlighted is this thing is so articulated that you can actually stack the links. A little hard for me to do here with these gloves on, but you get the idea. Now, if you can't find a comfortable wear on a bracelet that has that much articulation, I don't know what watch you're going to need, what kind of strap you're going to need to get a comfortable fit. So this oyster style bracelet, there's more to it than just being 3 links, right? There are articulated links, and then you have this beautiful milled clasp here, all original. The puck system that locks into it, completely unique, beautifully designed, snaps right in, all milled out, beautifully beveled there, fine and sharp. I mean, then you got the micro adjust there, so you can really just zero in on that fit. So let's go ahead and get this on the wrist. Okay, now as you can see on the wrist, this thing just wears about as perfect as it gets. It doesn't look too large, doesn't look too small. It just fits the wrist right. I mean, I'm trying to get a little bit more of the arm in there just so you can get a good idea of perspective on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, because once you get it up close, I mean, watches are going to tend to look much larger when all you're looking, again, with you're just keeping a silhouette of a wrist and a hand in the background. But as you can see, this thing just wears beautifully. The way the light, look at the sharpness in between the transition on those bevels. Just gorgeous. So you can see where it's nice and flat, and then you have the articulation here in the bracelet, just for an infinitely comfortable wear. That clasp, again, now it's so balanced because you have this thin profile on top, you know, and it definitely doesn't feel light by any means. It's not heavy. I think it just feels super balanced, and then one of those reasons is because this clasp is quite substantial. It's definitely something that really balances out, and it keeps the watch in place. Sometimes if you don't have a nice enough clasp, of course, that's where a lot of companies will cheap out on. They'll have a little stamped fold over clasp. And then what ends up happening is when your watch head, even on something that is as felt and slim as this, well, as you're moving around, it's going to move around because you don't have that kind of counterbalance and that counterweight up against your wrist. And in this case, you definitely have that. And I mean, I know when everybody does a wristwatch check, it's this way, but I tell you what, this clasp is nice enough to where I feel like you could take a couple of wrist shots just like this and it'd be pretty darn impressive. All milled out, right? So this isn't even stamped, as though, even though it's quite thin, it's impressively thin. It's not thin in that, hey, they saved a couple of bucks, you know, shaving down a thin piece of metal. No, they definitely spent a couple of bucks shaving down a chunk of metal to be so precisely fitted and finished. Again, you know, fit and finish working together to give you something that is just very special. So down on the wrist, really great, you know, classic proportions, very comfortable, you know, super balanced wear. And let's go ahead and move on to the loom shots. We'll hit the lights here. As you can see in darkness, really beautiful BGW9 with that cool blue tone. Fantastic. Again, it's, of course, it's not a dive watch. It doesn't have a huge, crazy amount of lume or anything like that. And then you know, but it's definitely very readable. You have that nice 12 o'clock indice, which gives you instant orientation because it is a larger size to the rest of the indices there. And then, of course, because you do have the 6 o'clock marker being where the date is at, you still get the really nice symmetry and balance on the rest of the dial at the 3 o'clock, and you don't sacrifice some weird, you know, crooked date window or anything like that in between the 4 and the 5. So I think that just looks great. So let's go ahead, get some low light transition shots here, because my hot studio lights, let's face it, guys, and anybody on YouTube's, they don't necessarily tell the full story of these watches, the beauty. And as you can see there in these low light transitions, just gorgeous. So this is what you can expect to see for this watch in real life. I know you're not always going to be outside in direct sunlight, so although my studio lights do a pretty good job of imitating that, you know, when you're walking indoors, you're in an office space, in your car, something like that, I think it's nice to kind of get a good idea of what you're working with. And as you can see, this is where the watch literally shines. You can just see every fine line and brush stroke there that just make this such a special piece. The way the light just dances and plays, I mean, wow, it's definitely very impressive. Okay, so back to getting fully lit here as the color balance comes back into play. I think we'll go ahead and get some closing thoughts on this piece. Now, one quick thing, of course, for model variants, I just want to touch on, there's a matte black dial, and then there's, of course, a sunburst blue dial and a sunburst green. All very popular color combinations. I actually have had my eye on the blue dial recently and the matte black. I feel like the matte black is so versatile. It's I don't know, there's something about it. And then of course I love blue dials. So the blue dial model has always kind of had my eye. I did settle on the gray dial as kind of a happy median between the two. And you know, I haven't looked, well, I have looked back. I haven't looked back with regret. I just find myself wanting to add more to my collection, and honestly, I could probably have a collection of just Triumphs and be totally fine. But that's definitely not going to be the case. I have way too many watches, and of course, I got to keep the channel going. But Monta, I feel like if you guys were trying to build a one watch, this definitely can suit that for many people's appetites. It's just versatile, it's capable, and it's competent, you know, which is just outstanding, especially at this price range. You know, under $2,000, you're really not going to find anything finished like this for, I don't know, $3,500. I mean, yeah, there's gray market. Yes, there's a used market, but I'm talking brand new, full warranty, directly from the manufacturer, because that's what this is. Let's compare apples to apples here, guys. Now, as far as comparable models go, I think something that this watch, of course, I touched on before, it really, a comparable model would be a Rolex Explorer, you know, or an Omega Seamaster Aquaterra, you know, or the Railmaster, of course. And these are all kind of on the higher end side. And then kind of on the lower end side, you know, you could think of like a Hamilton Khaki. Just because of the design aesthetic, but I feel like the execution is definitely much closer to the Explorer or the Aquaterra. So this is kind of in between. So if you're somebody, you know, maybe you love your Hamilton Khaki, but you just wish you had something a little bit more substantial on the wrist, or maybe, yeah, you have an Explorer that you love, but it's kind of a special sentimental piece. So you want something you can wear every day. I just feel like there's just so many, you know, there's so many reasons why this watch can be the watch for you. You don't really have to search for them. I think it just fits into so many categories and so many, so, you know, it just hits those marks, those check marks, and what I want when I'm looking for a watch. And then especially in the genre of what I'm looking for an everyday watch, when I'm looking for a watch that is worth its price, right? At the end of the day, it comes down to bang per buck. Now, you can buy a watch that's beautifully finished, but you're gonna pay a hefty price tag for the name brand. Now, in this case, what you're paying for is what you're getting, which is the watch. You're paying for the finish, you're paying for the passion, you're paying for the execution, the vision. You're not really paying for the Monta name. You're paying for an outstanding watch in the Triumph. Now, I think that will change in the future. I think the Monta name will start carrying a lot of weight, considering that their first two watches, you know, their first release being the Oceanking, and then their follow-up release being the Triumph. These are just two outstanding ways to start a collection. I mean, all they're short of is a chronograph, and they could have their own 3-watch collection nailed down, and you wouldn't even need anything else. So, really super impressed with this piece, and I did want to make sure that I gave you guys the full review, covering those details here in this episode. So the bottom line is, this thing is pretty much the ultimate attainable everyday watch. Now, I say attainable because, you know, people's ideas of affordable are different things, right? Somebody might think an affordable watch is $40. You know, some people's affordable watches are $300. I wouldn't call this, of course, it's over $1,000. It's you know, right about 1,500. So I will say attainable. I think that people that are shopping for $300 watches can attain a $1,500 watch. Yes. So I will say that this is the ultimate attainable everyday watch, just because of the price point. But again, for what you get, I mean, it's just it's pretty outstanding, guys. There's not really many other ways to put it. If you look on Instagram, if you search forums, you look for the reviews of this watch, there's a lot of happy campers. And I think it's really important to support brands, micro brands that are out there that are doing these types of things, because there's a lot of brands that are out there that start their careers as homage watchmakers, and they pay homage to a particular piece, sub homage, for example, and they do that, they pay the bills, and then they come out with something else later on. Now, Monta didn't do that. They went all in. And that's, a lot of people's biggest complaints about micro brands. They're too derivative. It looks like this watch. It looks like that watch. Just save your money and get a used Seamaster, right? You just hear that so often being preached. Or hey, if we could get this type of build quality and original design, oh, I would pony up the money. Well, guess what, guys? Now's a chance to put your money where your mouth is, because you have something here with the Monta Triumph that is an original design that is executed outstandingly. As you can tell from this review, and this is a review, guys, Monta is not at the level where they're able to give away watches. All right, I bought this piece, so I can put my money where my mouth is on this one and say that is definitely worth the price, full retail price. Completely worth it. So guys, if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Make sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is there anything that I missed? Is there anything else you think that's out there that is pretty comparable to this? I will be doing some comparables kind of soon. I'm gonna be shooting a, I guess a Rolex Explorer alternative video. So if you're looking for an Explorer, you can't afford one, you'll never be able to afford one, but you want something in the same vein, then this could be the watch for you. And there's a couple other watches I think that are worth mention, that we'll check out at another time. Thanks, guys. Bye.